If you're not where you want to be, it's because you're playing the wrong game. Most people fail not because they lack talent, but because they choose markets and customers doomed to fail. Keep making the same choices, and you are guaranteeing mediocrity. In these top 10 rules, Alex Hormozi delivers a wake-up call. Success comes from serving high-value customers, avoiding unstable markets, and building businesses designed to thrive. Winning isn't about working harder, it's about choosing better. Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
And if you make it all the way to the end of the video, leave a hashtag Believe in the comments below so I can celebrate with you. Believe. Okay, let's kick it off with rule number 1. Stay out of your comfort zone.
Every single person who wants to do something with their life and has done something with their life has gone through the exact chapter that you're going through. And it's the lonely chapter. It's the chapter where you don't fit in with your own friends, but you don't have the outcomes yet to fit into a new group of friends. And you're doing this thing, you're consuming content on the internet, you're doing these free tutorials online to try and figure out how to set up a podcast and where do I host this thing? And you're going through this and you're like, is this even worth it? Because you have no signs of success. But if there's anything that you can take away from what we're saying right now is that the sign of success is the hate that you get along the way. And what you can't do is bend the knee to their hate and fit back into the conformity because it's comfortable and it's warm. Because like in the Matrix, when Trinity opens the door, when Neo's about to go take the red pill and he wants to get out of the car, she says, Neo, you've been down that road and you know exactly where it leads. And I know that's not where you want to be.
Rule number 2 is stop selling small.
2 out of 3 businesses fail. And so that means within 10 years, if we were to look back at these business owners, 2 out of 3 are out of the game. Every business that I've started since 2016 still continues to make money to this day. So here's how to make your business unstoppable. There's 3 steps. It starts with stop selling small customers. Your business may fail, not because you are a failure, but maybe because the customers you serve are failures. Let me tell you a story to explain this. So there was a small gym CRM back in the day that approached me about investing. I asked them what their churn was. So what percentage of customers were leaving between last month and this month? And their answer surprised me. It was a much higher percentage than I expected because I thought a CRM, they're processing their payments through here, they have all their memberships in there, like this should be a very sticky product. And I said, so where is the churn coming from? And they said, oh, well, about 1/3 of the gyms go out of business every year. And I was like, wow, wait a second. So this has nothing to do with how good your product or service was. These businesses in and of themselves just stopped being in business. The formal language for that is called structural churn. It means it's baked into the structure of the market that you serve. Now the question is that your choice to pursue that market? And the answer is yes. A lot of business owners struggle in the business and they look at everything except for the most important thing, which is they messed up the pick. Chick-fil-A's head of people gives a great example of this when they talk about actually talent selection, but I think the parallel holds. They said most people lose in the NBA in the championships and wonder what they did wrong in the game, when in reality they lost in the draft, as in they didn't have the right people on the team. And so if you think about your business as an ecosystem, the right people on the team has to be all the stakeholders, including the customers. And so if you're thinking about your own business, there are many business models that simply aren't fit for smaller customers. And so I'll give you a different example. In the agency world, where you do some sort of advertising for any type of business, if you look at some of the biggest ad agencies in the world, you'll notice a common theme. They all serve the biggest customers in the world. Whereas if it were true that agencies would be best served serving small customers, then some of the biggest agencies would serve some of the smallest customers. But that's not reality. In looking at this, it means that just like the CRM business, and that's arguably one of the stickiest businesses you could possibly imagine, the agencies could not keep churn down with small business owners because small business owners in and of themselves are volatile. Let me give you a visual. So let's imagine this is kind of representing the ebbs and flows of the revenue of a small business. Now, let's say they decide to work with you here. They say, you know what, we're gonna sign up with you and you get paid. Now, maybe you start advertising the business and then the next month they make a little bit more money. Hooray, everyone's happy. Now, the next month, the normal volatility occurs, or maybe because you sent them more customers than they could handle, they say, hey, maybe we need to ease off a little bit. And all of a sudden they think to themselves, wait a second, I'm back in the same position I was before. But now I've got still more customers than I had before that. And now, you know what? I'm actually making less money the next month. And so what happens here? They become one of these for you. They cancel, right? This is the point of cancellation. And so what happens is that there's many businesses like small agencies that do lead generation for small customers and continue to wonder, what do I need to do in order to make my business sticky? And they kill themselves trying to figure it out when the problem is inherent to who they serve, is that they are volatile, and as a result, your business will be volatile too. It reflects onto you.
Rule number 3 is spend nothing.
If you're broke and you don't want to be anymore, I'm going to read you some stats that are going to blow your mind, and then I'm going to give you 6 steps so you don't have to be. The average American has a literal negative net worth. It means that babies are richer than people who are not babies because babies haven't gone into debt. Number 2, the average U.S. minimum wage employee will make over $1 million in their entire lifetime in earnings. And if you were the median of U.S. income, you would earn $3 million over the course of your life. So the reason staying poor is the decision is because you know as long as you continue to work, you are going to make millions of dollars. And most of the time, it's going in places that don't make sense. So challenge number 1 is the buy nothing challenge. It's very simple. You just buy nothing. So disconnect your credit card from Amazon, leave your wallet at home when you go to work, have no way to pay for stuff. You have your gas, you have your insurance, rent, car payment. If you buy food at discount grocery stores, you pack your lunch. That's all. If you buy nothing that is as austere or hardcore as my recommendations may appear, I do not ask people to do things that I haven't done. And so like when I was taking home $20,000 a month, me personally, I was in a house with 6 roommates and I split my bedroom with 1 roommate. And so 2 beds, 2 dudes looking at each other like every night. When I was making $1 million a month, I was living on less than 15. And so the key takeaway that shifted how I thought about making money and more importantly keeping money is that wealth is actually a ratio between what you earn and what you need. And the number 1 rule of money is spend less than you make. And so I always like being super conservative with my expenses relative to what I make because I don't like spending money that I feel like I need.
Rule number 4 is set proper goals.
When you set a goal, usually it's like, we want to do this thing, right? Well, you're not actually trying to do the thing. You're hoping that something's going to happen if you do the thing. We like to define both of those variables in the hypothesis. For example, if I wanted to have a sales goal, it might say something like, if I decrease the time to call leads from 30 minutes to 5 minutes, we will get a higher percentage of leads to book calls. That's literally the hardest part of this whole thing is what is the hypothesis that you're trying to test? Because whenever we actually do something in the business, we're not guaranteeing the outcome and we're not guaranteed from the business that it's going to create the result we want. I'm sure you've tried plenty of things that have been goals and it didn't result in the thing that you wanted, which is why you shouldn't state it as a goal necessarily, but as a hypothesis of what you think will happen. Once you have the what problem are we solving and your hypothesis of how you're going to solve it, then you only have 2 variables that you have to determine. One is, what's the thing I'm going to do, which is the activity, that's the input, and then what do I think is going to happen, which is the output. Number 3, what are we going to do? We are going to call leads within 5 minutes, right? That is the input. We check that box, great. Output is, we will get a higher percentage of leads to schedule or show. So you have your baseline of the input, which is today we're at 37 minutes, and we want to be at 5. That's the input change. The output change is going to be, we go from 50% scheduled to 70% scheduled. That's the output change. That is a goal. That is what we call the before phase. The after phase only has 2 columns, and that's what you review after the quarter is done or the year is over. Number 4, what do we think is going to happen? You say, okay, did I do the thing? Did I do the input? Did we actually decrease the call time to 5 minutes? If we did, then that's a green. And here's where this is important. We may have decreased the call time to under 5 minutes, but we may not have increased the scheduling at all. That's why it's a hypothesis. Now, did what I wanted to have happen actually happen? And then that is where you can put commentary on. So what we ended up doing is we ended up getting it down to 7 minutes and it didn't improve it at all. At this point, we don't need to get it down to 5 because we didn't have any directional improvement. It takes a lot of 0 to 1, a lot of shiny object, a lot of new things, a lot of trial and error, a lot of iterate until something clicks in the beginning. But big businesses often grow by a series of 1% improvements. 1%. Because you've seen the Excel math when you're like, well, if I only got 10% more people to opt in, and I got 15% more people to schedule, and I got 20% more people to show, and I closed one from 25% to 35%. You add all this together, and all of a sudden, you tripled the business. And the thing is that everyone gets so distracted with like I'm gonna reinvent the wheel, rather than just making the wheel a little smoother so it runs faster. And so a lot of times, especially in the $5, $10, $15, $20 million top line range, that's some of the systems we have to put in place because that's how the big boys play. They beat you because they actually can do 100 tiny increments. I think Gym Launch grew 40% last year, and we did nothing new. All we did was we did everything we were currently doing a little bit better. If you do that year after year after year, you become very hard to beat because people will see your marketing on the outside. They'll try and copy your pages, they'll try and copy your emails, and one, it won't be you, so it won't matter because it's not your story. But they don't know all the internal standard operating procedures, the internal metrics that you guys are tracking that actually create the growth in the company. And a lot of times in the early business, just measuring metrics may be the important goal for the quarter so that you can then improve it. Let's say you're a videographer and a marketing department, right? Each of these goals should start from the top down. So if we say these are our 5 goals as a company, the department heads are going to probably have multiple activities to make the first hypothesis true or not. I like to have everybody as far down in the organization do this because it actually causes you to think about why you do what you do. A lot of times employees lose motivation because they don't know how what they do every day ties into the bigger picture of how the company grows and makes more money. With a videographer, for example, they're like, well, what do I do? Like, what problem am I solving? The problem is get more customers. They might not think about it that way, but that's the goal. Well, my hypothesis is either we might say it's a volume thing, which is if I double the amount of shorts I make, then we will get more traffic to our website from our organic content. And at the end of the quarter, did you make twice as many shorts? Okay, green, fantastic. Did that result in more link clicks on the site? Oh, it didn't. Huh, interesting. I wonder what would do it. Okay, we need to create more content that's more story-based. Great, go back to the beginning. If we create more story-based content, we will get more link clicks to website. That's why goal setting, if done right, should take work because it makes you think, why am I even doing what I'm doing? And if you don't take like a day for a whole quarter to think, why am I even bothering to do this? Then why are you bothering to do it without understanding what you're trying to improve? And the thing is if you think this way as a teammate or an entrepreneur, I promise you, you will be so much more valuable to your company if you can even think like a business owner. And this is how a good business owner should think. And if you can approach whoever runs your company with this model, you may find that they will see you differently because they're like, wow, Timmy, who's making these video clips, is actually thinking about what I care about, which is how I'm gonna get more customers. Whatever the second part of the statement is. If you know what you're actually trying to accomplish in the business, then it makes it a lot easier.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight our favorite lessons from the video that will inspire you to remember what you learned today and actually apply them. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5 is talk to your customers.
Paul Graham said this, and I remember hearing it, and it just like got singed into my brain. He said, you can solve every business problem by simply talking to your customers. And I thought that was such an elegant answer and also true. It's easy to make a pithy response. It's hard to make it useful and valuable all the time. And this is one of those rare instances where it's both. And so I'll tell you a story. So when I had Alan, which was our software company, which is the third company that I started after 2016, I originally made, in my mind, to serve gym owners. Once we spent $1 million+ on developing this thing and actually rolled it out to gym owners, we had this big obvious problem that came up, which is they said, oh, this is so great. This will work on my leads. By the way, can you help me get more leads? And I was like, oh no, we completely missed the mark. And so what ended up happening is that in my mind, I could see that they had this problem that they weren't working their leads. But what I didn't realize is that there was only a very specific amount of customers that had that problem. And so then I had to think, oh gosh, okay, so I have 2 possible scenarios. I can either only go after gym owners who already know how to generate leads consistently, which we're talking like a tiny, tiny, tiny marketplace. And here's the caveat, that marketplace still can't pay that much. So bad market to go after. Small and has not a lot of money and shrinking. Yee, right? Not a good market. So I thought to myself, okay, well, what businesses always have lead gen? Well, the solution came to me when an agency owner actually reached out to me and said, hey, could I use this for my business to work the leads that I'm generating for my small business owner customers? And I was like, oh, wait a second. Small business owners will churn in and out of the agency services, but the agency will stay because they will bring new customers in, use our software, And even if they churn out with them, the agency will stay with me. And so the agencies had much more reliable revenue than their base customers did, because they could reliably sell 10 new customers a month to offset the 10 customers they'd lose or whatever. And so many of them were still stable businesses, even though they had lots of churn, which the fact that they couldn't necessarily have the skill set to grow their business wasn't necessarily a problem for me. So to the same degree with the CRM, there are some CRMs that are very successful, even that serve small business owners, but they have to match the pricing to the spending power of that small business. And Shopify, for example, probably makes more than almost any e-commerce company on the platform. We'd have to fact check it, but it's probably pretty close. And so the platform itself actually makes more than the opportunity seekers it enables. So this is definitely one of those situations of selling the shovels rather than panning for gold. And so once I realized that gym owners were not the customer and agencies were the customer, I was able to start asking agencies for the correct feedback. And that is when we were able to continue to iterate the product in a way that actually served the right customer.
Rule number 6 is strengthen your brand.
The brand that you're going to build in a local community is going to be based on the quality of your product and your service. Your reputation is going to be based on that. And so if you feel like you want to strengthen your brand, strengthen the product. You don't need to make a video on Instagram every day talking about fat and carbs. Because real talk, you're not going to be better, most likely, than the hottest chick on planet Earth talking about the same thing in terms of reach. And the thing is, and here's the double-edged sword, let's say you are amazing at it. If you do that, what's going to happen is that you're going to get more demand on your personal brand and online, et cetera, people who don't live close to you, that will be a greater business opportunity for you than a single local location. And so then you're going to have a choice, and many of you probably have done this. Well, I've got some online clients, I've got some in-person clients, and I'm totally spread thin, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I think that for most local businesses, the brand is going to be about the reputation. The reputation is going to be built on consistently meeting expectations. Now, the thing is we always talk about over-delivering, and I've even talked about over-delivering. But I think a lot of times I think about this, and the real is that most people just can't even meet expectations because we sell so hot. And so if you could just meet the perception that this person has, the expectation they have of this, the service that they're going to get, you already won. Make promises, keep promises. Make promises, keep promises. And if they liked the first promise you made them and you keep it, they'll be with you forever.
Rule number 7 is develop influencing skills.
In your view, what makes a really good entrepreneur/leader?
I think that they have to have the power to influence, and that is across lots of things. They have to be able to move other people. And you can define sales as the ability to get people to comply with your request. You can define leadership the same way. Management, marketing to a degree is getting people to comply with a larger request, publicly. But I think that fundamentally is a skill that people have to have if they're going to be successful at entrepreneurship. They have to have tremendous drive, whether that's a combination of towards or away. So they have a big mission that they really want to achieve, or they have some very big fear that they're running away from. Either way, I think the fuel works, just from a pure entrepreneurship perspective. Third piece is impulse control, is that they have to be able to say no to things on a regular basis for an extended period of time. And I think they have to be able to boil down the success of their business into inputs and outputs. Like, if you do not know the inputs that are going to get the output that you want, then what are you doing? And so I think for most entrepreneurs, like, if they have those things, if they have the ability to lead other people / sell, just influence, they have some big motivator. They can control themselves long enough to keep on going during that period of time, and they are doing the right things because they know the inputs and outputs to be successful, to create the thing that they want, becomes a very difficult person to beat.
Rule number 8 is stay authentic.
The third thing that we have to do to make your business unstoppable is don't pretend to be something you're not. And you're like, what does that even mean? So let me tell you this quote that I love, and then I'll get into the story. This is by Shane Parrish. Success comes down to doing the obvious thing for an extraordinary period of time without convincing yourself that you're smarter than you actually are. And I love this quote for a number of reasons. First off, because it's so true. Here's my easiest visual for you. Actually, I'm gonna see if I can get the right colors for the markers. So this is gonna be a tough one. Let's see if I can draw this. I've never drawn this before, so forgive me if this sucks. Oops, fuck that up. Looks like a dog with a curlicue. So this is a pig, not a dog. And so here's the saying that I love about this. Oh, it's because I put a dog nose on it. I should have put little front snout. Okay, well, whatever, you get the idea. So if you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. And so if you put you sprinkle a little bit of software into your service business, it's still a service business, right? And so if like 90% of your revenue comes from service, and here's the tricky part. If 90% of the value comes from the service, they will still determine that it's a service-based business. And arguably, the likelihood that you will get the economics that a software company has with the service business is low. Let me tell you a story to illustrate the point. So there was a solar company that I was talking to that had 400 sales guys. So a big solar company that did very well. And the founders were young, enterprising guys, super ambitious. They came to me and said, hey, we want to have a monstrous valuation for our company. And I said, I think you already do have a monstrous valuation for a company. And they said, well, we know that software companies get valued significantly higher than kind of the transactional sales nature of solar. And I said, you're right. And so what? And so they were like, well, we have this software that we use to recruit salespeople and make them more productive. And that's why we have such a big and productive sales team. And so what we were thinking about was taking that software and then licensing it to other solar companies. And I told them that I thought that was a terrible idea. Now, why would I say something like that? Well, in theory, if you had a software company that had the same revenue metrics as your solar sales company, then you would have a significantly more valuable company. But number one is for you to get those same economics, you're not selling $30,000 things. The likelihood that you'd be able to get even close to the amount of revenue per customer would be significantly lower. Number two is the amount of people that can buy solar roofs versus the amount of solar companies is way smaller. Third, neither of these founders were software people. And so what they wanted to do was kind of like pretend to be software and just say like, oh, we'll just sell some people into this thing and then we're going to get a software multiple on the entirety of our revenue. That's not how it works. You have to remember that the person who's writing a $100, $200, $500 billion check is smart enough to have a $100, $200, or $1 billion to spend. They know the difference between a solar company and a software company. Software companies and companies that get extraordinarily high multiples don't get high multiples because of the name or the label that's associated with them. They get those extraordinarily high multiples because of the nature of the revenue and the quality of the revenue that they have and the potential for gross profit in the future. And so if you have a service-based business that has the exact same economics as a software company, you will get software-like multiples at enterprise value. You want to solve for the things that matter, which is you want to solve for revenue retention. You want to solve for incremental margin. You want to solve for logo retention, meaning number of businesses that are staying on your platform or on your inside of your business. You want to solve for being able to onboard low value people to be able to provide high value services, right? So this is where like a tech-enabled service can be more valuable than a traditional service because a tech-enabled service might be able to take one person and have them serve 50 customers rather than one person and have them serve 5. But it's not because it's tech-enabled, it's because you have now 10x'd the value that any individual employee can provide and lowered the skill barrier for somebody to provide that value. And so that translates into higher gross margins, lower cost of acquiring talent, and higher percentage of customers that stay every year, which means that the business will compound year over year over year. And so you can wash away all of the labels that people ascribe to business and simply boil it down to the metrics and the unit economics of the business to then ascertain, fancy word, figure out what the enterprise value multiple of the business is, because it's only going to be a discount off of how big and how likely that bigness is to occur in the future for an investor. A lot of small business owners, entrepreneurs want to get the maximum amount of money for their business in the future, and that makes sense. You should do that. But the way you do that is not by trying to pretend to be a different type of business. It's not by taking your lawn care business and trying to say, actually, we're a software business. It's not trying to take your e-commerce business and saying, actually, we're a platform. It doesn't work that way. It all boils down to the actual math. And so the easiest analogy is if you think about your business as a pig, and this is the world's ugliest pig, if you put lipstick on the pig, it's still a pig. And so if you put lipstick or you sprinkle some software on your lawn care business or your local service business, it's still a local service business. And one of the mistakes that I honestly see all the time is where people will take their service, say, I'll give you the service for free if you use the software, but here's the problem. The revenue will look just like service revenue. And so just because you bill through a software system, if you still have the same churn as a service business and the same margins as a service business, then they will still value you like a service business. You'll get valued based on a multiple of bottom line, which is fine. It's just not going to be a top line multiple or some big number on top of that, because that's not the nature of the business you're in. And that's okay. So I think just leaning into who you are and what your business really is, rather than wasting a tremendous amount of time trying to be something you're not, would serve a huge percentage of business owners.
Rule number 9 is learn to run a business.
What do you say to all the people now that want to start a whole, they're just like, I'm going to go buy businesses because that's what cool people do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go hire an operator. You have any words for those people?
Well, right now, buying businesses is like in vogue. I don't really know why it got in vogue, but my best guess is that we have so many people retiring right now that there's just a huge supply spike. And then a lot of people who'd never made their money buying businesses, selling courses on how to buy businesses. Because the thing is, and this is kind of for the audience, is like, if you make your money buying businesses and you're really good at it, you don't need to sell a course. Like the best people at buying businesses buy businesses and hold them and invest. Like I think Naval said, like the best investors don't sell courses on investing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because like if you're really good at it, you don't need to.
Yep.
And I kind of stick by that. And so it is kind of, and there's a lot of marketing dollars that are going behind that and a lot of content being made because it's like sexy. And the idea of buying a business for no money down that makes $500,000 a year, which is absolutely possible.
Mm-hmm.
You totally can do that. But the thing that they miss is that I can buy a business for $0 down that makes $500 or $1 million a year and know how to run it. If you've never run a business, and even if you do somehow magically pull off that deal, you're still screwed because you have no idea how to run a business. And so it's like you still lack the skills even though you can close the sale. Like I could sell that I could build a skyscraper. And if I somehow manage to BS my way through the negotiations and close the contract, I still have to build a skyscraper. And if you've never built a building before or even a house, very tough. And the likelihood that you then lose your ass on, because like you'll get the business that does $1 million in profit per year for $0 down, but not for $0. And that's the piece that I think a lot of people miss. It's like, it's not free. Like you have a liability or you have a debt if you do some sort of seller financing, creative financing, whatever. It's like, but now you owe this person.
And rule number 10, the last one before a very special bonus clip, is generate passive income.
So the goal that most of us entrepreneurs have, right, is to have freedom, right? So we want to not work or not have to work and have money coming towards us. And the thing is what I have learned is that you can make anything passive and you can make anything active. And one of the difficulties for entrepreneurs when you switch from entrepreneur to investor is that you want to take your passive things and make them more active in order to increase your returns. And that's a very tempting thing to do because we're entrepreneurial and we can see where the margin is getting lost, right? But if you always chase time, then you'll always be able to make whatever it is. Like if you chase time always, then eventually you'll end up with all your time and you should have some left over that is coming towards you, right? And so I'll give you a quick example. Gym Launch 2 years ago, I think made 17 million. I mean, according to our quality of earnings, we made 17 million in profit in 2018. And this year we'll probably do 8 million-ish in profit. So you were like, whoa, you cut in half. Here's the difference. When we did 17 million, I was the business. It was 100% Alex's face wrapped with a monetization structure wrapped around it. I was taking calls. I was doing all of these things. I was definitely CEO. I was definitely in front of the marketing. I was also the product. I was doing all those things, right? Right now, the business basically generates half the profit, but it involves me for about 90 minutes a week. And so my dollars per hour are significantly higher because now I also have all these other things that I can do with the time that has earned back for me. I will pay for whatever shortcut possible. Now, I think the game has changed somewhat, which is that like education now, because of media, there's a lot of really good stuff that wasn't there 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, true. You know, my hope is not to self-aggrandize here, but like the stuff that we share, like that
Absolutely.
wasn't, like there wasn't a lot of people out there who were actually doing stuff, who were just, sharing it. Right. And so there's a lot of opportunity to learn on your own. The piece that I think has been valuable is community and kind of like debottlenecking. So it's kind of more the service side of what is commonly referred to as the coaching industry, which is really just consulting that hasn't been formalized yet. And I want to be clear, there are terrible ones.
For
there
sure.
are many, and I think it's honestly more the rule than the exception. But there is value in someone helping you get somewhere faster. And making sure that that person has helped people like you get to where you want to go is a great first litmus test to look through that, right? And then the third piece is kind of the community piece, which is for me, from a belief standpoint that you were alluding to earlier, I've gotten my biggest breakthroughs have come from community over anything else. And watching someone that I thought I had the same chops as, or better chops, do better than me. And then think, if he can do it or she can do it, I can do it.
Makes sense.
And that has been very intrinsic to me. Now, some people don't have that belief like at their core, which I would recommend. I believe like everybody's made of skin and bones, and like if someone else can do it, so can I. And that's a belief, though. You know what I mean? But that has been very valuable for me. And the many people throughout my life that have spoken small pivots in the road that have, resulted in huge changes. When we went from scaling brick and mortar to licensing, like that was a huge change in my life. When we even went to go pursue what we're doing now, just through M&A and private equity, like that was a huge change in my life. And much of those decisions came through dialogue with people who were further ahead.
For 10 more amazing rules from Grant Cardone, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
I want to talk to you today about success. Success, duty, obligation, responsibility. If you approach it any other way, which most people are, most people think, well, I'll be successful if the economy works. I'll be successful if something happens.